Hello dear TV viewers, and welcome to this new English lesson aimed at the 9th form pupils of basic education. Today's lesson is about school violence, which is a big problem, a serious problem that worries parents, pupils, the school staff, everybody. So we're going to deal with this topic today, and I've got some pictures to show you. Let's start with the first picture. So as you can see, there are three pupils, three schoolmates. One of them is aggressed. You can see that he looks worried. He looks afraid of them. And the other one is aggressing him here. And the third one is witnessing the scene, but he looks passive. He doesn't even try to separate them and ask them to stop the fight. So, in this scene, we have pupils, or these are pupils, and two of them are aggressing one of their friends. What do we call such behavior? It's violent behavior. And what these two students are doing is clearly not correct. We have another picture now, and as you can see, a pupil is slapping his friend. It must be after a game. Perhaps he teased him because he won and the other lost the match. And this happens very often outside or even inside the schools. So what can we say about this picture? In this picture we can see that this is another form of violence practiced in our schools. It happens in sports games, and its consequences can be very dangerous, because the pupils can hit each other, and of course they can have lots of injuries. Now, sports do not encourage violence, of course, but on the contrary, their aim is to encourage friendship and respect between pupils, between people in general, if you like, and between pupils themselves. We are going now to see another picture together. And as you can see here, this pupil here, or this young man, is proud of himself. He looks arrogant. He is happy because he hit his friend, or because he hit him, yes. And look carefully at this boy here. Look at his nose. It's red. So, and let's read together what he said. I always feel happy when I tease and taunt my friends like this. I just don't know why they always complain. Of course, he is so arrogant, and this behavior should not be tolerated at all. And pupils should respect each other, and we should not fight. Let's say we should not encourage any kind of fighting. Now, there is another picture. We're going to discover it together right now. But before that, this is another form of violence we see in our schools sometimes. And some students feel stronger than the others, and they act violently, thinking that this is a simple game. This is the next now picture. And as you can see, we have three people. One of them is in the middle. What do you think he's trying to do? Perhaps he's trying to stop the fight. And we hope he can do that. But let's see what everybody says. Let's say here he's saying, or he said, she is always insulting me and causing me problems. Let me hit her. So what does he want to do? He wants to hit her. Is this a correct behavior? Of course it's not a correct behavior. This is something intolerable. Pupils must not hit each other. But let's look at her utterances. He is very impolite. He always hits me and makes fun of me in front of my friends. I want to hit him back. So when you tease someone, of course you anger him, and he wants to attack you. So you should not tease your friends and should not make fun of them. Now let's look at this here pupil, or this young man in the middle. as you can see, he tries to stop the fighter. And what does he say here? Stop it now. Do you think that this is the best way to solve your problems? Violence is not the solution. I think we all agree that violence is not the best solution. It has never been a solution. It has never been the best solution to stop your fights or your misunderstandings, of course. If you have any misunderstanding, try to solve it peacefully, especially at school, because the school is a place for studying. It's not for fighting, of course. Well, you have some games where you can play together and try to have fair play, not fights. Now, what is common between all these visuals then? They show certain aspects of some of the violent acts we sometimes see in our schools. And as we said, it's something intolerable. As we said, the consequences of such actions can have negative effects on relationships between students. Now, let's watch these scenes. Some pupils performed scenes at school, and we'd like to see them together now. So here is the first one. They are the kind of scenes that might occur in your school, and the purpose of showing them is to sensitize you to the importance of trying to avoid resorting to violence to solve your problems. Let's watch. As I said, we're going to watch the first scene. Now, this is the scene happening at a school. As you can see, there is a naughty pupil. He doesn't seem to be a good one, of course. And let's see what's going to happen together. Now, look at him. He's running after his friend. Now he catches him. And I think he's asking for something. Now, look carefully, he slaps him. And the other one is, of course, suffering. He's on the floor. Now, is violence the solution? Of course not. Let's think and talk about it. Violence has never been the best solution to solve your problems. And the school should be a place of studying and not a place of fighting. We have another scene to watch together. Bullying, what for? So this scene is going to be about violence. Bullying, what for? Let's watch it together now. Two pupils in the school corridor. Yes, now look carefully what's happening. He's beating his friend. And of course, we should not encourage such behavior. Now, he took something and he's going to beat him. This is the kind of things that we should not encourage at school, we should not accept at school. This scene is showing something very dangerous. Now, look, he kicks his friend, he tries to get something out of him. And this is very bad, of course. The bullying is bullying an act of courage? Of course not. Bullying should not be accepted. It should not be accepted by anybody, of course, because bullying is something that some people resort to in order to grab something from others. They attack other people in order to show that they are stronger than them, and they want to be the strongest perhaps at school, and to be so arrogant, and this is the kind of behavior that nobody accepts. So we're going now to summarize what we said. So the purpose of showing the scenes is to sensitize you to the importance of trying to avoid resorting to violence to solve your problems. Those scenes performed by pupils, and their purpose, as I said, is to say that violence is not the best solution. It is something that nobody accepts at school or even outside the school. So our school should be safe, should be with a violence-free atmosphere, so that all the people who or the pupils who attend the school should feel free and safe, of course, and they go to school happily, not feeling or not having some kind of fright or being scared of others. Now we're going to continue, and of course we're going to have to answer this question, why do some pupils resort to violence? There are different reasons, and the first reason, I think, is to impress their friends. Some pupils want to be arrogant and want to be, let's say, the strongest ones at school. Others think that they resort to violence because of some kind of jealousy. They are teased. Some people are teased and taunted by their schoolmates, so they resort to violence. Misunderstandings caused by some daily problems. Try to solve your misunderstandings by resorting to peaceful means, not violence. Some pupils are aggressive by nature. Those pupils should be cool at school. They should not resort to violence, of course. What do you think of this behavior? As I said earlier, nobody can accept this behavior. Is it appropriate, correct to behave violently? Well, the obvious answer is, of course, not. Do you often witness violent behavior outside or inside school? I think some of you perhaps witnessed some violent scenes. Is it allowed to behave like that? And I think that this behavior should not be tolerated. So, what do you think of this behavior? Do you often witness violent behavior outside or inside school? We have another question. Is it allowed to behave like that? And we have also this question. Is it appropriate or correct to behave violently? We all agree that violence should not be accepted at school. The obvious and logical answer to the last two questions, is it correct or allowed to behave that way, is no, of course. Our school should be with violence-free atmosphere. We should not tolerate this type of behavior in our schools, because the relationships between students themselves and between students and teachers should be based on respect. So we should respect each other. Pupils should respect their schoolmates. They should not vex them, should not taunt them, they should not tease them, because when you tease your schoolmate, of course, he's going to be aggressive and he's going to attack you. So try to be cool, try to be friendly. Violence, of course, should not be tolerated. So violence should not be tolerated. So what must or mustn't students do to avoid violence at school? We're going to have an exercise together, and we're going to see what mustn't students do at school. And this is the first part of the exercise, of course. And we're going to tick the right alternative. We're going to see the alternative right now. So what mustn't students do at school? We have series of alternatives. The first, so the instruction is to tick the right alternative. Okay. Attack their friends. Must they attack their friends, or mustn't they attack their friends? We're going to discover in a few seconds. Must they respect their teachers, or mustn't they respect their teachers? Of course, we all know that pupils must respect their teachers, but we're going to see that later. Must they support their friends, or mustn't they support their friends? Must they taunt their schoolmates, or mustn't they taunt their schoolmates? Think about it. We're going to see that later. Must they do their homework regularly, or mustn't they do their homework regularly? What do you think? Must they tease their classmates? Mustn't they cheat in the exam, or must they cheat in the exam? Now, we're going to see together. Let's look at number one. What do you think? Attack their friends. Must pupils attack their friends, or mustn't they attack their friends? What is the possible answer? What is the logical answer? Of course, they mustn't attack their friends, because if you attack your friends, of course, that's violence. That's not good. Respect their teachers, of course, we're going to see that later. Now, they mustn't, of course, taunt their schoolmates. They mustn't taunt their schoolmates. What about homework? Must they do their homework? Or mustn't they do their homework? We're going to see later on. But now, tease their schoolmates. Must they tease their schoolmates, or mustn't they tease their schoolmates? What do you think? Let's discover now. So, they mustn't tease their classmates. Pupils mustn't tease their classmates. The last one now, of course, they mustn't cheat in the exam. So we have 4 answers with mustn't. Pupils, of course, mustn't attack their friends. They mustn't taunt their schoolmates. They mustn't tease their classmates. And they mustn't cheat in the exam. So let's summarize what we saw before. We can express this using mustn't. So students mustn't attack their friends, and the students mustn't taunt their schoolmates. Students mustn't tease their classmates. Students mustn't cheat in the exam. This structure mustn't means that we are talking about something we should avoid. It means we should not do. Now, we saw in the exercise some other sentences, but before moving to the others, this form, mustn't, we express through it prohibition. So this means we express prohibition. When you use mustn't, you are expressing prohibition. And in the other sentences, what must they do instead? Because we kept some sentences without using must. We're going to see them now. Students must or have to respect their teachers. Students must or have to support their friends. Students must or have to do their homework, of course. By using must or have to, we are saying that this is something which is necessary to do, which is good to do. We are then expressing obligation. So when I use mustn't, we said we expressed prohibition. Now we are expressing obligation. When I use must or have to, we are expressing obligation. We have must or have to express obligation. We have an exercise now to see together. And this time we're going to put must in the correct tense. Now we have must in different places. We have must here, and must here, and must here, and must here. And our instruction is put must in the correct tense. When we read a paragraph, of course, we have to be careful. Now I'm going to read and stop at words that are very important in this paragraph. Children's education is changing very rapidly in the past, so this is a very important word for us. Children used to stay still for long hours. We have a blank and then memorize all sorts of things. In other words, children at that time, so we're going to be careful because we're going to talk about something perhaps in the past. We're going to discover later on. So we have a blank here. Go on repeating things until they knew them by heart. And then we have the second part of the paragraph. Okay, we have the second part here, but we have here today. Compare what we saw earlier. We started with in the past here. Look carefully here, in the past. And now we have today. So be very careful. Teachers, so we have today. Teachers say you, and there is must and there is a blank. Let the children learn and discover things for themselves. But for these children, the future seems to be difficult to imagine. So we're going to talk about something very important, the future. So mind this word, be very careful. The constant question they keep asking themselves is what they must, and there's a blank, to do, to lead a suitable life in the future. So let's start with the first one, and as I told you before, you have to be very careful. So let's read. Children's education is changing very rapidly today. In the past, this is a very important word, children used to stay still for long hours. Now, what do you think? We have must, and we have to put it in the correct tense. Bear in mind the word in the past. So we're going to see this possible suggestion, and I think it must be used in the past. So be very careful now. Yes, let's see it right now. So, had to. They had to memorize all sorts of things. Why did we use had to? Because as I told you, we have here in the past. So we are using must in the past. So what is the past of must? Had to. Be very careful for the next one. So they had to memorize all sorts of things. In other words, children at that time, which time? Is it the present or the past? If we link this word that time with in the past, so we have to use now, again, had to. Here it is. Okay. So children at that time had to go on repeating things until they knew them by heart. So we used must in the past, and to remind you that must in the past gives had to. All right, so we have to use had to. Now, let's look at the next part. As you can see here, there is today, which is different from this word in the past, so be careful now. Teachers, so today teachers say, you must. What do you think we're going to write? Let's see now. Must, of course, because we have the present today. Must. You can also say here, teachers say you have to let, but be careful, say have to, okay? Must let, base form let, okay? Must let children learn and discover things for themselves. But for these children, the future, so we have to talk about the future now, seems to be difficult to imagine. The constant question they keep asking themselves is what they, be careful now, we have at the end of the sentence here, in the future. So what do you think? What are we going to use? Now, let's discover together. We'll have to. We'll have to because we have the word in the future. We are talking about the future. So we started with had to because the beginning of the paragraph we have the past, and then we used must. As I told you, you can use have to when you are talking about something in the present. So in this sentence, for example, today teachers say you must. You can also say have to let, or must let their children, or must let the children, or have to let, or have to. Okay, don't forget that. But when you have words like in the future, or when you express something in the future, be very careful. We must, of course, change must to will have to. So must became here, or becomes here, will have to. Will have to. Now, I'd like to see with you the examples and summarize. Today, teachers say you must let the children learn. We are using must because we are talking about the present. There is today. So today. In the next example, or before the example, we have the rule itself. So must plus base form of the verb, and we express obligation in the present. So remember, must plus base form. We express obligation in the present. As for the second one, they had to memorize all sorts of things. We have here had to because we of course used the past. They had to. Also, they had to memorize all sorts of things. Children had to go on repeating. Children had to go on repeating. Of course, we are still talking about the past. We are using the past of must, which is had to. Had to. Remember that. So, had to plus base form, we express obligation in the past. So, remember, had to plus base form to express obligation in the past. The third example, they will have to do, and this time we'll have to plus base form if we want to express obligation in the future. Obligation in the future will have to plus base form. We have a text now to see together, and I'd like you to read it, and I'm going to help you read it. Now, let's see it. First of all, let's discover what kind of text is it. We have here, Dear Jake. So, look at it. So, as you can see, we have a letter. We have certainly a letter. And here is the Dear Jake. Jake is the receiver or the sender? What do you think? So, Dear Jake. So, Jake is the receiver. And who is the sender? The sender is Andrew. Okay, Andrew. And who do you think Andrew is writing to? He's writing to his brother Jacob. His brother Jacob. So, we have a letter. And the letter is from Andrew to Jake. Let's read it, if you like. Sorry, Dear Jake, sorry I haven't written for so long. Now that my exams are over, I decided to write you a letter. I need your advice because I don't know what to do. My best friend Michael did something which upset me very much. Last week, during our maths exam, he copied of me. Can you believe it? He cheated, but that's not the worst part of it. When I realized what he was doing, I turned around to tell him to stop, and the teacher saw me. She thought that I was cheating. Michael didn't say a word. I ended up getting a 0 in my test while Michael got 17. What should I do? Should I explain to my teacher exactly what happened? If I do so, I'm afraid Michael may get angry. He may taunt me and attack me after school. I really don't want to ruin our friendship. But then again, it's not fair. I feel helpless and I don't know what to do. Please write back soon. I really want to know how you feel about this situation. Your brother Andrew. So, Andrew is in real trouble. He's got a problem and he wants to solve it, and he's asking for help. We're going to see this letter and we're going to go through it paragraph by paragraph. Okay, let's see the first one and let's see the question first. Read and tick the correct answer. Andrew wrote this letter, and we have alternatives and we're going to choose one. The first alternative is during the exams. So what do you think? Think about it. After the exams. Before the exams. So we have 3 possibilities. Let's go back to the first paragraph and let's discover. Okay. Sorry, I haven't written for so long. Now that my exams are over. My exams are over. What does this mean? Let's go back to the alternatives. So let's see the correct answer. My exams are over, which means that he wrote his letter after the exams. Now we're going to see together the next alternatives. Andrew wrote the letter to ask for advice, to complain, or to tease Michael. Let's see quickly the letter. What do you think? Here we have what should I do. So the answer is, of course, to what should I do? So the answer is, of course, to ask for advice. The next question is, or we have the next sentence, sorry. Andrew is thinking of telling the truth to his teacher, but let's see the alternatives. He doesn't get on well with his friend. The next one is he's afraid of losing his best friend. And third one is he's going to make his teacher angry. Now, we can have a quick look at the text. What do you think? Now, we have to see the answer now. So, he's afraid of losing his best friend. Now, we're going to see the next sentence and the alternatives. When the teacher found out about the cheating, the alternatives are Andrew lost marks, Michael lost marks, and then C, Andrew confessed his deed. All right, let's go back to the letter. Here, what do we have? I ended up getting a 0. So what is the logical answer? Michael lost marks. All right, now we have another task to do. Read and complete. We're going to see here we have a gapped paragraph, a gapped summary, and we're going to talk about Andrew's feeling, of course. So what do you think? How did he feel? Andrew is feeling upset, and we need another adjective, helpless, about Michael's behavior when he, what do you think? Copied answers of him during the exam. He sometimes thinks of confessing everything to his, of course, teacher, but he thinks that Michael may get angry. All right? Now, we have to fill in the gaps with words from the list. So we're going to have a list of words. Let's see them together. One, okay, they're coming. We have the paragraph, and then we have the words. So we have must, then conflicts, violence, safe, attack, way. So before perhaps starting, well, we put here violence, but I didn't tell you that we have many blanks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we have more words, so you have to be very careful. I'm going to read with you now. Pupil on pupil violence, attack on teachers, damage and destruction to school premises are just some of the examples of violent scenes happening at schools. In fact, school violence, so the first one has been done, as you can see here for you. In fact, school violence is regularly in the news in Europe. Government officials say that everyone, so we need something because we have a verb here. So what is it? Let's discover. Must work together against it. All schools have to follow certain principles, such as the right to so there is something here missing, so let's discover it. Safe and peaceful, because I have an adjective here, so I need another one. All right. So the right for everyone to have equal treatment, and the idea that there is something missing here too, so let's discover it. That conflicts should always be solved in a non-violent and constructive. So what do you think? Constructive attack? Of course no. Constructive way. So attack is an extra word. We didn't use it because it was not necessary. The next step is a writing exercise. And we've got something to say to you before doing the exercise. We have a question to answer. How is violence expressed inside and outside the school? So there is verbal violence. It is characterized by, let's see, what is it characterized by? It is characterized by humiliation. Sometimes pupils humiliate their schoolmates, and that's very bad. Sometimes they threaten their friends, so threats are very bad. So we should not threaten our friends. And intimidation. We should not intimidate our friends. And we should not use any kind of verbal violence. Physical violence. This type of violence has become frequent, especially outside the schools. And pupils attack one another and fight over trivial things. Violence has both physical and psychological effects. We're going now to discover some of the effects. Well, we are going to start with physical effects. Let's see together. Fractures. When you attack your friend may have some fractures. Broken hand or broken leg or something else. Body marks, scars on the face, bruises, injuries, pains. Some pupils, when they are attacked at school, might be hospitalized, and that's very bad, of course. Now we're going to see now together some psychological impact. So we have to see psychological impact of violence. Well, let's see. Anxiety. Pupils become anxious. They don't like to go to school. They worry. They are worried, so there is some kind of worry. Lack of self-confidence. When your friend beats you, when your friend, of course, attacks you, you lose some self-confidence. Humiliation, which is very bad, and fear. Pupils sometimes don't like to go to school because there are some naughty pupils who might attack them or taunt them. We have now to see together and to talk about this behavior, of course, and this kind of behavior should not be tolerated. Students should campaign for a violent-free atmosphere in their schools. This means an atmosphere where there is no violence and where there is nothing but friendship and understanding. You decided then to take part in one of these campaigns by producing a leaflet in order to make your schoolmates aware of the bad effects of violence in the school environment. You collected the following pictures, so we're going to show you some pictures. Try to write some suitable comments in the bubbles. So we're going to see pictures and some bubbles. Let's look at the first one. Now look at the first picture. Okay, here is the bubble. But before that, you can see that he is attacking his friend. He's pushing his friend. He's attacking him. Look at his school things. The books are on the floor. And that's very bad, of course. So what can you say? Don't push your schoolmate. You will hurt him. So when you push your friend, your schoolmate, you're going to hurt him. And that's very bad. Nobody accepts that. We're going to see the next picture. All right. Look at them. What do you think they are doing? They are certainly threatening their friend. Perhaps they're going to beat him and they want to get something out of him. Okay, let's discover. What can you say? Now, don't beat a schoolmate to impress others. You mustn't be arrogant.